Everyone dreams about living an uncommon life, but how we define that dream is very different for each of us. And for most, it's a lifelong pursuit. Welcome to the Uncommon Life Project podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living that life or enjoying the journey to get there. We're going to also give you some tools, tricks, and tips for starting or accelerating your own efforts to live an uncommon life, a life worth celebrating and savoring. Please welcome your hosts, Brian Dewhurst and Philip Ramsey.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Life Project, where I am your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I am Brian Dewhurst.
We have an amazing guest for you today.
I'm excited.
I can't wait. I think it's really going to be really, it's going to hit a lot of listeners right where they're at, because I feel like, especially in Brian and I's business, we feel like there's a value to our business. We don't really know what that is. Mm-hmm. What do we do with it once we have it?
Right.
And so our guest today is expertise is valuing businesses. Her name's Patti Bell. Brian's going to do the bio because he's way better at it than I am. And then we're going to jump into it.
So much pressure when you set me up like that.
Yeah, it's tough. But guys, thank you for being on, folks. I always say, guys, I got to stop that. Folks, thanks for jumping on this. We hope that this is valuable to you. Obviously, we're financial advisors that really do think that you're your best asset. And so when that happens, a lot of people start starting their own businesses, start bringing their passions out, and then being able to impact the world. Man, that's where Brian and I sit. That's our hot spot. We love it. And okay, Brian, bio. Let's get Patti on.
Let's do it. All right. Patti is a CPA and leader in business and advanced solutions at Principal Financial Group here in Des Moines. She specializes in helping financial professionals on business planning, executive benefits, and estate planning. Welcome to the show, Patti Bell.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Oh, well, first we need to shout out to the people that connected us, because I feel like that's fun. Rick Cordero, the connector of all connectors.
Yes.
Rick Cordero.
Former guest on the podcast as well.
He was. You love Rick. We love Rick. Tell us how you met Rick for the first time, only because it's fun.
Well, I actually know Rick in a couple of different ways. So I've been at Principal a really long time, about 36 years, and Rick has been there a long time too. And he started helping people protect their income, and that was right in my wheelhouse. And so we started working together. And then as we started working together, we found out my neighbors, when I first moved here from the Northeast, were friends of his. So we kind of know each other a couple of ways.
I mean, who isn't friends with Rick? You know?
Right.
I get it. You're like, so what's that? 7 separations from
the 7 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. It's about 2 degrees of separation with Rick Cordero. Is really what it is.
That's right.
Well, okay. I really kind of want to start. I think that's a great place to start, because this hasn't been your full-time thing ever since 36 years ago that you started Principal. Is that right? Like, what was your first gig? It was mutually funded, the company. Now it's shareholder owned. So that transition's probably been different. But what has your career path been up to this point, and how did you get into business valuations?
Thanks for asking. So I came to Principal right from college. And at the time that I joined Principal, there were a couple of big tax acts. So tax reform of 86, tax reform of 88. And part of my responsibility was to help us calculate cost basis properly, because a lot of those, and that's an exciting time. I'm just here to tell you, tax reforms.
Yeah.
And
we don't know anything about tax reforms now. Like, what are those?
What? And so I helped make sure that our cost basis and our reporting was accurate. And then that was kind of on the post-sale side of things. And then about 20 years ago, I switched from a post-sale side to a pre-sale side. And so I got a little closer to the sale, was a little more exciting to help financial advisors with their clients. From a company perspective, it just kept growing. And so as we went from a mutual company to a publicly traded company, just that balance of looking at shareholders, looking at clients, and looking at employees, that balance has maybe just transitioned a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I would say a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, when you started going into business valuation, what was the genesis of trying to, like, why? Like, there has to be a reason. There was a lot of people maybe wanting it. And then why did you jump into it? And then tell us kind of the trajectory of the department itself.
Sure. So the department that I'm in is called Business and Advanced Solutions. And almost every major carrier has a department like this. We're attorneys and CPAs. When I joined the department, I was the first CPA. And the leader at the time said, you know what, we've been helping clients with kind of an estate planning focus. We're going to transition and start helping them business owners. So we're going to need both disciplines, the attorney side and the CPA side. So I've been kind of an odd duck, as you might say, because it was
Dare you say uncommon? Dare you say it?
Uncommon. I was an
See?
uncommon, yes. And one of the things that we started doing, and we've been doing them regularly since 2006, but one of the reasons we started is that business owners don't know what their business is worth. About 60% have never had their business valued. And because of that, that's kind of a hurdle from doing planning. And so we found that if we help business owners understand what the business is worth, it might help them take the steps to do some planning.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And I want Brian to ask questions, but I feel like this is the time, 6 minutes into this podcast, to tell you, guess how much it is for them at Principal to do a business valuation on your business. Brian, you want to guess?
I think I know the answer.
You know the answer.
Okay. I think it's free.
It's free. This whole thing is free. And so I love the barrier to entry because it's so easy.
Because it's free.
Because it's free. Now, I know what the listener's thinking. Why is it free?
Nothing is free.
Nothing's free.
The freemium is never free.
Right. So why are you offering this at no cost, Patti?
Because this is an informal business valuation. We do about 2,000 of them a year, and we do them at no charge because we want people to do planning. And we found that this is just a great way for us to start it, and then for the client to take the valuation to their advisors and say, we need to start something because I've got something important to me that I need to protect. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the reason, because we found it kind of helped people get a grasp of what it's worth and start planning.
That's great.
So that's kind of the reason. And so from a complementary valuation standpoint, a lot of the valuation methods we use are not ones that I developed or that Principal developed. These are industry standard formulas that are used all over the U.S.
And you kind of have to have it that way because you are evaluating so many different businesses, from financial services to real estate. I mean, it seems like it could be anything, right? Yeah. To cleaning, window
different
cleaning.
Types of businesses are valued in different ways.
Right.
For sure. So we've had, the world is a data analytics world now. Mm-hmm. And that's a big change from, when I started with the company. And so if I look at our industries that we've been tracking since 2015, service, manufacturing, and construction are the top industries, and they have been leading since 2015.
That's awesome. What, I have so many kind of questions here. I'm trying to lay this out.
It's hard when I ask all the questions, and poor Brian has all these questions that I run him over.
More of the technical side, but
yeah, that's good.
When should a business owner start to think about this as an action step in terms of risk management, wealth management, financial planning? Is it based on how many years they've been operating? Is it a size thing? Is it a revenue thing? What does that look like?
I think it's kind of a years in business thing, because kind of out of the gate, you kind of have to know, how am I getting in to the business? And then how am I going to get out?
Right.
And in those documents that you the articles of incorporation, the partnership agreement, and maybe even your Schedule C sole proprietor. You have to have some thought about, I'm going to do this. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to create something that is of value, because that's what entrepreneurs do, right? They've got an idea and they act on it. And as they develop this business and having an idea of how I'm going to get out, and the business becomes a big part of their livelihood, their lifestyle. So knowing how you want to protect your lifestyle, we know business owners care about protecting their business, protecting their employees, protecting their lifestyle. So when those three things are very dependent on the business, that's a very good time to start.
Yeah, that's great. I like that actionable.
Yeah.
Very just tick. Oh, yep, that's me.
Yeah. Well, and we have, lots of different clients all over the U.S. and in different, spots in their business. And we have some people that, have been, I would say, like serial entrepreneurs who have, started several companies and started a new company, got it, 2 to 3 times bigger than the previous company, sold it, and done that kind of trajectory where they're doing, venture capital funding or angel investing, that type of thing, and it's very valuation driven. And as we look at that process to, go public or IPO, in the United States, that is when the valuation is, I think, very clear, and you're really trying to drive that, from the beginning. And those entrepreneurs, are starting it with that in mind at the forefront, knowing they're not probably going to be the one to take it to, its final stage. But then you have a lot of other people that are really, truly just kind of self-employed, but there's a valuable business there. Your chiropractors, dentists, eye doctors, all of that type of stuff, even financial advisors. So that to me is where, I think the most loving thing you can do in financial planning is preparing your estate of something. When something happens to you, we call it graduating. And knowing too, like kind of what you just said, this is some of the most loving thing you could do to your clients, your employees, ultimately your family, is starting to plan in the exit of your business.
Right.
It truly is. Brian, that made me think of a couple of dentists that I worked with in Georgia, and they were 2 brothers. Is it okay if I just give you guys an example?
Oh, would love to. Yeah, please do.
Okay. So I did a valuation for these 2 brothers, and we were going through the report, and I could just tell from the brothers, they were like, yeah, so it's $3 million. So what?
Yeah, right.
And so I said, okay, well, let's kind of take a step back. Are you guys married? And the one brother said yes, and the other brother said no. And I said, so, okay, married brother, do you have a will? And he said, yeah, I do. And I said, oh, okay, so you leave everything to your wife, right? And he said,
we know where this is going. Keep going, Patti. Keep preaching it.
And he said, yes. And I said, oh, that's amazing. So she's a dentist? Dead silence.
Dead silence.
No, she is not.
And she is not. And I said, well, since she's not a dentist, she can't be an owner. Wait, what? And then I said to the younger brother, and so that means if we don't do anything, you're going to be in business with your sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we started asking a lot more questions. So sometimes knowing the value is one thing, but knowing the impact of what it actually means for them personally, that seemed to really resonate with them. So just that step back to go, okay, now let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's neat that you guys work with the advisor, because that's really the ultimate goal, is to get them to act on something that they might have not be vulnerable in. Right. Mm-hmm. And so how much is a business valuation? What do we need to do to maybe even protect that? Or what does the next stage look like? And I love it, especially the trajectory of Principal understanding this, because Brian and I used to we always just say, yeah, we can work with businesses or individuals, but guess who runs businesses? Individuals. And a lot of advisors only focus on the personal side of the individual. But Brian and I have always made a conscious effort to your business is actually a huge part of your retirement. Now, how are we going to value that? How are we going to use that to its fullest capacity for you to be able to walk away at some point? And how does that affect your retirement? Now we have something where they're all in.
Yeah.
No one's ever been able to help them do that. And you guys have kind of done the same thing, right? Is you go in, you figure out the valuation, and then you help them act on now what, which I think is super powerful through the advisor, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not like you guys are trying to sell them anything. It's
Exactly.
like, no, I have to go talk to your advisor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to say that, I have had the luxury of operating in this space for a very long time, and I'm an extension of the advisors that I work with. So when our advisors are working with their clients, and then I encourage them, get your CPA, get your attorney involved, because this is a joint effort, and the more everybody's on the same page, the better it is.
Right.
Yeah.
How many times do you think a business owner should get their business evaluated after the first time they do it?
Yeah, I think it's an every 3-year kind of thing,
Nice.
but for unless something big has happened. So I'd call the pandemic something big. When we do the valuation, we look at 3 years of financial statements or tax returns, and based on what we've seen over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of up and downs for, some businesses like grocery stores went crazy. Other businesses like restaurants, it's been, they had
decimated.
to reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
And so we've been a little bit more, a little leeway of looking at things kind of annually. But, I've looked at a set of 3 financials and seen a great big dip and said, hey, what happened? What was it in this year? Oh, well, we were closed because of a flood. So things happen. Maybe you lost a partner. Maybe you lost a key employee. Those are good times to say, hey, what is it doing to the value of my business?
Yeah. And then with all the kind of the PPP money, the EIDL money that's floating around, it's like, well, that's all one-time stuff. And, how do you pull that out? And, obviously I think the PPP program was actually really great. I know it was abused. You're going to have some of that when you're throwing around that kind of money, but I thought it was actually a pretty effective targeted tool, to help the country. It was interesting. I just went home to Omaha, where I'm from. And, that's where I'm from. And so you're kind of like, oh, what about this restaurant or that restaurant? We're trying to find places to eat. And they're like, oh, my parents are like, no, that's closed, gone, closed,
gone.
Like whole mall just, buried basically in the ground. And so COVID was a massive impact, economically. And so what does a business owner, you kind of touched on it, but I just want to highlight it again. What does if a business owner is listening to this and say, yeah, I think it's about time I do that. What are they going to need to have put together? And it's kind of, we're filming this or shooting this. It's on tax season. So you kind of alluded to it. What does a business owner need to bring to the table to get this done?
I love this question because every business owner is super busy. So it's like, it's intimidating, right? Unless they understand like, oh, wait, that's all it is. So I'm hopeful that this is going to be like, oh, they just need this, this, and that. And every business owner is like, wait, I have that. Like I can do this. So go ahead.
Yeah, it is super simple. And so we would just ask them to send you guys 3 years of financial statements. So that would be your balance sheet and your income statement. And then, or 3 years of tax returns. And then you have an RFP that you would send to us, but the RFP is super simple and there's nothing on that, that information from there that a client would have to open a drawer and find information about it. So it's, how long have you been in business? What's your industry? How many employees? Just simple things that can be answered off the top of your head. So it's not difficult at all.
That's good. Let me ask you this. What if a company has a trademark? Does that help their valuation or like, how do you know that? I'm saying this because we have one. So is that taken into account or it's like, Philip, stop the madness? Like you nothing.
Well, it kind of depends. Is it on your financial statements as goodwill?
Ooh,
and so
should
we're
be
very
$4 million worth. Okay.
Exactly. So when I have the opportunity to look at financial statements, I'm a geek. establish
Well,
that up front.
appreciate that. I love that.
And so when I start looking at financial statements, it's like you're opening a brand new book, and I'm getting a very numerical look, but I'm trying to get in the heads of the owners and say, oh,
good.
but I see they've done this, so I think they're trying to grow this. And I'm looking at wages, and I'm thinking this is what's happening. Maybe it's a family business, and I'm kind of seeing a junior along, and I can see it in the 1125E that the compensation's being paid. So it's a brand new book, and I'm trying to get into it. And then when I have a chance to review it with the client, I always start with, you know what? I've had a very numerical look at your company,
That's good.
but what I really would like is the color commentary.
Right. Maybe something that we didn't see. Here's what I would say. Now, I'm going to say always, which you never say never or always, but here we go. It seems in my experience, every business owner always values their business higher than what it actually is. We all know it.
I think we've had one or two that are like, I don't want to put any value on my business at all.
Yeah, which then, that's true. So maybe that always
it's a 98, 99% style thing, though, I think.
Let's talk about that for a little bit, because you're going to sit down, and I love that commentary of like, I looked at it from the data, and
yeah.
Have you ever had any client like just be upset? Like, come on, Patti.
Oh gosh. Yes, definitely. And it kind of depends on the purpose of the valuation of why they're doing it. Because if you think about a family business, and you're talking about transitioning from maybe the first generation to the second generation, or maybe to the second or third generation. I've actually talked to a business owner who is 6 generations in.
Wow.
Which it takes
That's
incredible planning. But sometimes when you're doing that kind of transition, they want the business value to be low.
Right.
Because
good point.
So kind of the numbers are what the numbers are sometimes.
Yeah, you got to take the emotion out of it.
And so you kind of see sometimes this happens. If I have a manufacturing company and I valued it and it's a lot lower than they thought it would be, I ask the question and I say, but what about your building?
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, we've got a separate LLC for that, which is really smart. That's good planning.
Right.
But it's not included in the financials that I saw.
Right.
So when they think of the value, it's inclusive of the operations and of the building, and all I had was the operations.
Right.
Obviously, you're doing this for free. You're an insurance company. Like, we obviously, when something's free, you're typically the product. And I don't say that in a negative way, but, obviously we insure our house. We insure the things that are valuable to us, our incomes, our kids, our spouses, cars. Obviously, if you have a multi-million-dollar business, or even a business or sort of, a couple $100,000, there's value there, and it probably needs to be insured. So can you kind of talk at a high level of some of the solutions that maybe come out of this to, risk manage the value of that business?
Great question.
Yeah. Excellent question. And let's kind of break it down into kind of those areas that I said business owners care about. So first, let's talk about when we want to protect the business, there's 2 things that kind of come out from that. And that is kind of from a business succession and a buy-sell perspective. If the 3 of us are in business together, when we have our buy-sell agreement gives us what the purchase price will be when, and I'm old, so I'll be the one that dies, you guys.
Just graduate yourself. It always sounds better.
So I die, then the 2 of you are, based on our buy-sell agreement, are obligated to buy from me. Well, if we've done let's just say for ease, it's a $3 million company. Well, now both of you have to come up with $500,000 to buy me out. And that's just a very natural way for insurance, life insurance, to be used to generate that income so that it doesn't drag on the business for you to have to buy me out. And so a very close sister to the valuation is a review of the agreement. And I kind of view our purpose in reviewing the agreement is to make sure that the business owner has the right amount of money in the right place at the right time. And so from a buy-sell perspective, there's usually a provision in a buy-sell agreement that says what the purchase price is. And that's where our valuation comes in. So you can compare. I did the valuation. What does it look like in the buy-sell agreement? And would you sell it for that? Because
that's the age-old. Yeah.
I've had a lot of construction companies, especially in the buy-sell agreement, they list the purchase price as book value.
Which they never sell it at.
Right. And so I have a lot of conversations about the value of a company having two parts, what you own and what you do with what you own. And so what you own is on your balance sheet. What you do with what you own is in your income statement.
Right.
And if your valuation is only looking at one of those, it's going to be undervalued. And so helping people understand that. So that's one of the things that you could use insurance for. Another thing.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that we also see in protecting the business key person insurance. Just if something happens to the key sales guy, the operations manager, we want to make sure that you've got some money to go out and find somebody else.
Yeah.
Who gives the final evaluation, like business evaluation, to the business owner? Is it you and your team, or is it like us? Let's talk through that. We
love it to do it as a team. So we prepare it, we send it to the advisor, and then the advisor can set up a conference call, and we will go through it with everybody. And I kind of like it that way because there's business valuation is art, not science. And I like to tell people, remember when I said this is a numerical look at your company? I also want to tell them some parts of this are math and some parts of this are Patti Bell. And and I want to explain to you what parts are Patti Bell. And so that takes kind of the art to it, because there's two parts of evaluation that are kind of the art part of it. One is picking multipliers and cap rates, and the other part is excess owner comp. And quite frankly, when I tell somebody that I've included some excess owner comp, most business owners say, "Wait, what? I don't get paid any extra." And then I help them with, well, as an owner, you get paid two ways. You get paid to do the work, and you get paid to be an owner. And when you get paid to do the work and that's what you'd have to pay somebody else to do the work.
To do that same work, right.
And so if you are, let's just say it's $100,000 job, but you're the owner, so you're taking $200,000 out. I'm going to add back $100,000 to that in that calculation.
Nice.
And then all of a sudden, when you help them with excess, anything I include in excess owner comp actually increases the value of the company. Then suddenly I start hearing about, well, I do have my college student working, and and we go to the Bahamas for a conference, and I I
The
once,
$80,000 Suburban or Escalade that's in the driveway.
you
And,
know, here's just
yep.
a fun story to tell because I did a valuation of a grocery store in California. And I get it, in California, they needed to get their groceries fast, but probably they didn't need a Maserati.
Probably not, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
What
So,
about, oh, go ahead.
so I wanted to just kind of jump. So that's kind of where you would see insurance and on the protecting your business side.
Yeah.
On the protecting your employees side, we're it's like media is packed with the Great Resignation.
Mm-hmm.
And almost every business owner we're talking to is having difficulty retaining, recruiting,
right.
rewarding.
Yep.
And so those areas are coming out. And there's a number of, benefits that can be offered to hit the objectives of the business owner, whether it's, a qualified plan, group products, or even something just as specific as a deferred comp plan.
Gotcha.
And then of course that third bucket, is just the lifestyle. And so just the normal things like Rick talked about, the income protection part of it, and then survivor income. Those are ways that insurance comes into play, but it might not.
Right. Well, and the planning that they maybe did when their business was, valued sub 1 million. And then if it goes over 1 million, you kind of have to start to redo some of that stuff or at least evaluate it because the numbers just get much bigger, much faster, when you own a successful company. One of the things I wanted to ask too, just because we're getting more and more of this, we've had several business owners, help. Not like we're helping them, but just kind of running through the numbers in terms of like retiring and future income, that have sold their business or done an exit. What would this be a good service for somebody who's maybe coming in and buying a business, to get like another set of eyes on a valuation versus like a business broker who obviously, is incentivized to get the business sale done. Any kind of thoughts or color there?
Yeah, we work with business brokers, and sometimes when people are looking at our informal valuation and they're comparing it to the valuation the business broker had, ours is lower.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to explain to them, they're kind of like a realtor. And, the realtor, when they're going to sell your house, they look around them about what the peers are doing, and then they're going to maybe shoot a little high. Business brokers tend to shoot a little high, so they have a little room for negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the perspective that it comes to me as, is that, hey, why are you so much different than the business broker? And then one thing maybe that we haven't touched on from a informal business valuation compared to a certified valuation.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain times in life where a certified valuation is required. And by certified valuation, that's one that's completed by an accredited, there's some designations that are valuation focused. And when you get a valuation, a certified valuation, it's defendable. And so if you use it for, so you need it for estate tax purposes, you need it for an ESOP, you need it for gift tax purposes, for those things where you're basing decisions and doing that as. So if you want that, then you need a certified valuation. And then the thing that you get with a certified valuation that you don't get with our informal valuation is that a certified valuation does just what the house realtor does. They look for businesses like yours in the same kind of community, and what did those sell for? Mm-hmm. We don't do any of that kind of comparison, but that's what you would get with a business broker. That's what you would get with a certified valuation.
How much is a certified valuation, just for fun?
Oh, we're in Iowa, so I would probably say somewhere maybe 8 to 10,000.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Okay.
On the coast, much higher.
Right. So how do let's say our listeners are leaning in. So how do they interact with Patti Bell and getting their business informally evaluated?
Well, they will contact me through you. So
yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. Yes.
Yep.
So it's us.
Yep.
So you already have a relationship with us. I think that's the best part. Text us, call us.
Yeah.
And let's get this started. And honestly, Brian and I would love to go through it just to make sure that we understand the process and we can speak to it even more. So I think that would be kind of a fun exercise just to, hey, here's our 3 years tax returns. We do have a trademark. Hey. But I think that'd be really good just for our knowledge to understand exactly what and how it was going through. So
definitely.
So tell me this. So give us a couple last closing thoughts that you have to our listeners that are just out there, maybe encouraging them or whatever. But your voice is just amazing, by the way. And I love your knowledge of 36 years doing this. It's so awesome. And then I have one question after you have your closing thoughts. That's a fun question. So go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So I love this kind of work. Lots of people ask me, why are you still there after 36 years? And because every day is a brand new story with business owners. And it's been amazing to me the amount of money you can make doing really weird things.
Yeah, right.
And so it's been a really great story. So I like people we know what your passion is. You've had a good idea. You built a business, a successful business. Now let's take care of it. Mm-hmm. And so just make sure from a valuation perspective that you have kind of those two things match. What in my head would I sell the business for? And what does my documentation say? Mm-hmm. Because too often those things are not done at the same time and they're not cohesive. Mm-hmm.
Right. They don't line up to each other. That's great. Okay. Here's my question, because you kind of alluded to it. What has been the craziest businesses that you had to evaluate?
Oh gosh. I had a business in the East Coast that they clean dirt.
Yes. Yes, they do. They do clean dirt.
Sounds mafia-ish or something. I think they're in the John Wick movie.
Yeah. So that was a good one. I've done a salon where they do the hair of celebrities.
Oh,
so
that's fun.
That's kind of fun. The wire bindings that are kind of on the old school recipe books. That was
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that was a good business. A business that makes lawn ornaments.
Brian's favorite. He's the reason why they're in business.
I got 40 gnomes in my yard.
He doesn't really. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me this: if you were going to start a business, from all the knowledge you have, what are you like? This is the business I would do, even though you really don't have a lot of passion for it, but you're just like, this is so quirky. I would do that.
Oh gosh, I think it would be travel. In the travel, it's to help people go see the world and make it easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Patti, you are a breath of fresh air. I can't wait to work alongside of you and get some of the Patti Bell isms. I'm sure there are. But thank you for pouring into business owners over the last 36 years. I don't know if it's 36 years, but ever since you started this career in this job, I think you're doing amazing work. And I'm grateful that you took some time with us, and our listeners can hear more about what you do and how you value businesses. So thank you so much for being here.
You are so welcome. And thank you so much for having me. I mean, it's really fun work. So I'll probably do a little while longer.
Absolutely. So you've been listening to the Uncommon Life Project. I've been your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I'm Brian Dewhurst.
Until next time, go be uncommon. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
That's all for this episode of the Uncommon Life Project. Brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.